What is mascot horror? There seems to be a ton of topics about this on YouTube, but none of them really explain what is mascot horror. Well, I'm gonna tell you what it is today, but we're gonna have to go back. And I mean way back. Welcome back to 2014, where YouTube didn't look like this. It looked like this. And it was around this time that a specific game came out, and this game is what started mascot horror. At least, that's what I thought at first. Remember how I said we had to go way back?
Let him go.
According to Urban Dictionary, mascot horror is considered a subgenre of internet horror, often called kitty horror or kittypasta. And in 2001, it saw the creation of the very first. In 2001, the very first creepypasta was created. The title of the creepypasta was called Ted the Caver. The story consisted of a bunch of journal entries that dated back to the late 2000s. To keep it brief, the story is about a guy named Ted and his friend B. Both men were cavers, and one day they discovered a secret cave. Naturally, their curiosity gets the best of them, so they devise a plan to expand this small hole and figure out what's on the other side. The infographic show has a really good video about this, but long story short, what was on the other side of that hole was extremely creepy. Ted managed to squeeze himself in, but Ted had to travel alone. Remember his friend B? Well, he was too big compared to Ted and couldn't fit through the hole. Therefore, Ted's only option was to proceed alone. Everything was going fine until Ted reached this room. Inside of that room was a giant egg-shaped rock, but Ted felt strange. Ted felt as if he was being watched inside of this room, so he decided to leave immediately. Not without taking pictures, of course. Only his camera couldn't capture anything. Yeah, that Polaroid wasn't a mistake. That's an homage to what he saw. Nonetheless, Ted managed to escape, but he did record what he saw on paper. Ted remembered that there was a scribble on one of the walls. He also remembered the sound of howling wind and scraping rocks. Now, the story doesn't end here, but the story is very long, so I highly suggest you go and watch that video I mentioned earlier. But now that we talked about the first creepypasta, you guys are probably wondering something. How is this related to mascot horror? Well, being that this was the first creepypasta, it led to the creations of other ones such as this one, and of course...
Hello everybody, and welcome to Let's Play Slender.
It's critical. I'm playing Slender for the PC. Let's do this shit.
How's it going, bro? My name is Matt. Welcome to Slender.
If you were my age growing up, you definitely know what this game is. Everybody and their grandma was playing this game back in the day. Now, things get interesting once you see that this game was originally based on a creepypasta. Slender Man originally appeared in 2009 in a Photoshop contest thread. Now, you know how the internet is. People start putting their input, and eventually people started to claim that Slender Man exists. I mean, just look at these pictures. It's easy to trick young kids into believing that they are real just because of how good these Photoshops were. Thus, this all surged Slender Man's popularity enough to create a game about him. Now, I don't know about you, but in this era of YouTube, this was like the rise of YouTube gaming. This is when horror games were getting good. Not to mention that this served as the perfect catalyst to what will become mascot horror. With the popularity of Slender Man, more and more creepypastas would be adapted into video game format. I remember vividly actually that one of my favorite creepypastas was actually Sonic EXE, which also took over the internet at one point. And as time progressed, we of course get closer to the release of Five Nights at Freddy's. In 2014, everything changed. A small indie game by the name of Five Nights at Freddy's was released. Created by Scott Cawthon, this game ended up becoming one of the most popular horror games of all time. And I feel like that's an understatement. This game was everywhere back in 2014, and even today. Five Nights at Freddy's today is a well-established franchise that everyone loves to cover, and one of the biggest aspects of Five Nights at Freddy's that everyone likes to talk about is the lore. Sure, the game was already scary, but the lore? Man, the lore was crazy. And what inspired this lore? Well, none other than real-life events. Yep, your ears heard that correctly. Five Nights at Freddy's was inspired by a 1993 case in Chuck E. Cheese. Now, this relates back to creepypastas. Creepypastas are created to scare you, and they do that by altering reality by making things seem more real than fake. Now, at least to me, Five Nights at Freddy's just seems kind of like a creepypasta, or borrows elements heavily related to creepypastas. Nonetheless, this game became so popular that it spun a bunch of different iterations, and also a bunch of copycats. But one game stood out more than the others, and that game was... In 2021, Poppy Playtime released and it absolutely blew up on the internet. Every single gaming content creator was playing this at some point. Now, immediately this game was getting compared to Five Nights at Freddy's just due to the cutesy nature of the monster. I mean, take a look. Here we have Freddy Fazbear, and here we have Huggy Wuggy, the mascot for Poppy's Playtime. Both are deceptively cute, and both appeal to children. Now, to some people, this was a breath of fresh air, because up until this point, the FNAF series has been going on for 5+ years. Not to mention that this game followed the same kind of concept that FNAF follows, but this time the gameplay was different. In this game, the game works by having these two retractable arms that can solve puzzles and grab objects. This is a stark contrast to the simple gameplay of FNAF, where instead of being able to move freely like in Poppy Playtime, you had to check your cameras and avoid being captured by the animatronics. And for what it's worth, Poppy Playtime works surprisingly well with horror. That vent sequence with Huggy Wuggy, for example, was extremely terrifying in my opinion. Nonetheless, just like FNAF, this further increased the mascot horror subgenre and spiraled the subgenre out of control due to the success it can potentially give a franchise. Indie creators were now trying to create their own mascots, and honestly, who can blame them? And to no one's shock, yet another game rose out of popularity in this genre. And this one's a bit controversial. This game is called... Gone are the days of the creepypastas and in with the formulaic mascot horror games. Garden of Banban is a little weird. Essentially, it plays like Poppy's Playtime, copies aspects from the back room, and holds the potential of lore just like FNAF. Now, what's interesting about Garden of Banban is that it doesn't have just one mascot, but it has 6. The reason why this is so different from the other games like Five Nights at Freddy's is that for FNAF, Freddy was always seemed as more important than the other animatronics, while in this game, it seems like all of the, well, whatever they are, all of them have a specific role. Now, don't get me wrong, I like that there are multiple mascots, but I wish the game was designed to be scarier. Nonetheless, I like the potential that Garden of Banban has. It gives off this nostalgic, minimalistic vibe that, hold on, Poppy Playtime already did this. And this is kind of where the problems arise. If everything is simply just rinsed and repeated, how can this genre continue to survive? Truth be told, I don't see this genre of horror ever dying right now. Yes, it has its faults, and half the time I don't even like it, but I can't deny that it offers such good content. And you know something? Not every mascot horror game is horrible. I'm a huge fan of Baldi, and I also really like what's going on with Amanda the Adventurer. And despite not being too scary, Garden of Banban has my attention. However, I do believe that there should be some sort of change. A good change would be to get rid of the formulaic style and create a game that is actually meant to scare you. And also, Poppy Playtime. Don't screw over your fans by creating NFTs. We don't like that. Games should be fun and the lore behind it should be fun. And in truth, I do miss the days of the creepypasta. That era of YouTube was extremely fun, and seeing games based off creepypastas be made and seeing streamers and content creators play them was such a joy to watch. That being said, I don't believe that there can ever be a game that can top the magic that Five Nights at Freddy's gave. It was so unique for its time, and seeing the franchise expand and grow with the lore made this franchise unforgettable. The term kitty pasta was brought up earlier, and that's part of the problem. Older people like to play these games too. In fact, that's why I believe FNAF was so successful. It catered to the younger audience with the appeal and the older audience with the lore, while actually being a scary game. I guess I wouldn't be so bothered if the trend wasn't being done so poorly. Nonetheless, I welcome all the cute mascots that turn out to be some deranged villain, but please do it right. On a final note, do I believe that mascot horror is dying? Not by a long shot, but I do believe that the genre has lost its heart. Hey, you made it to the end. Don't mind me, I got a lot of explaining to do. So lately I've been noticing that I kinda don't feel the drive to create just pure gameplay videos. I would much rather just do it live, like just stream it. I've been having the drive to kinda just, you know, do commentary videos like this where I can actually make something more cinematic. Truth be told, I feel like if I am going to just grow on YouTube, I need to be a little bit more cinematic. Now that doesn't mean I'm not gonna play games. I'm gonna be streaming every now and then. For example, it's just kind of gonna happen, guys. Like, just subscribe and you're gonna see me live streaming in a few days, like boom. As of today, I feel like the channel is going to shift extremely. I think the potential with growing with gaming is more with streaming. If I'm not Markiplier, PewDiePie, or Jacksepticeye, I'm gonna stay at the bottom. That being said, for anybody who's been subscribed to me for the longest time, please let me know how the video was. Let me know your feedback, guys. And also, for those people who have been begging and asking for a Discord server, I've been hard at work. I've created it. It should be in the link in the description or in the comments below, so go check that out, guys. I don't know what else to say, guys. I feel like I got everything off my chest. As always, this has been LunarPrezzz, and I'm signing off. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye bye.